And it's great to see you do these leadership roles at such a young age. Awesome. So for me, outside of raising 2 boys, which is always a leadership challenge every day, they're amazing, but I think for me it was truly moving from, I was at a global multinational company, and I went from having lots of staff and running a very large multi-billion-dollar business to going to a company where I had to start everything from scratch. Literally educating the leadership about my market, to hiring all the people, to learning a completely new set of leadership principles and styles of executive management. And it's probably, when I look back, I will say it's been one of the most exciting yet challenging leadership times of my career. Because you really, as you grow in what you do, no matter what kind of leadership style you have, when you grow, you begin to understand that you create skills over time as you scale. And you get to a certain level and you're doing these certain roles, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, we want you to now go way back and start almost again creating something. And you task yourself in different ways, and you evaluate yourself in different ways as a leader. And what I had to go back and relearn lots of things that I had known and that I'd actually forgotten. Because things like, as simple as, for a long period of time, I'd only been hiring executives. And I had to go and hire like individual line, and I said, well, what's the interview skills? Like, what do I need to ask them? What kind of talent am I looking for? How is my business going to be different here than it was previously? How do I want to set this organization up for success? And the reason I tell you that it was a challenge, it was an opportunity, I should say. It was a challenge, but it was a great opportunity, and that's the way I try to look at everything today. Like, what's the opportunity and what do you learn? And the learnings for me was that it's really good to dive deep in everything, not just be surface level, but really understand and ask the right questions and sort of challenge yourself on, are you continually thinking about how you do what you do in your team, in your organization, how you scale it? And I had to scale this on a global basis. But of everything I learned, I had to learn, when was I the leader? When was I the mentor? When was I the manager? When was I the coach? And when was I the roll the sleeves up, get the job done with the person beside me? And that's really, believe it or not, when you're running a business, you sort of step yourself back and say, well, this is my role. But when you're building a business to try to scale, you ask yourself lots of different things. And I think, hopefully, that is something that individuals can learn no matter at what level of organization you're at or how large the organization is at. Because if you're in a large order, you're trying to just build something net new or change something net new, how do you approach that? Or if you're just building something from scratch, how do you think about what role you play? And for me, it was just really different because I'd gone from something at mass scale, and I was managing and running, to something I had to just start all over again. And I had to figure out what role, who am I? And what role am I playing? And how the heck do I hire all the great people I need? And through lots of mentors and blessings, things have worked out so far, but the story hasn't ended yet.
So you really went from a large global organization to almost a startup, and so it's really that continuum that you really need to flex those different muscles, which is great for all of us in today's environment. So thank you, Teresa. So we'd love to hear from you all. How do you define leadership personally? What does that mean to you? As succinctly as you can, but can you define leadership in your heart and mind?
I think the most important aspect of leadership is fostering other people's ideas. I think when I was running the youth team in Loudoun County, the most important thing to me was listening to other people's ideas and what they wanted to do and what they wanted to, their interests, how they wanted to see what the club was doing. I kind of look at myself as like a medium to go through. Because in the end, it's not us that's doing all the work, but it's everyone working together. together as a team to accomplish something bigger and, make a difference in our community. And I think that's what leadership is emulating others, what they want to do, and using that to create a bigger difference.
Excellent. Thank you. Well said.
In the world I grew up in, it's all about influence, and it's about the ability to get other people to do something they might not otherwise do, because if they were going to do it anyways, it does require a lot of leadership. And in many cases, in doing so, it doesn't benefit them whatsoever. So it's really the ability to influence people to do what they might not otherwise do, when in some cases there's no benefit to them.
Right. Thank you. Teresa?
I'll say two things. One concept that I've always tried to foster was one, lead from the front when you need to, be there, guide, lead, direct, have sharp elbows if you need to, be the first person to break through the glass if you need to, but stand side by side with your organization when that's what's needed, and or sort of push from the back a little bit when that's what's needed. I think that is sort of the 360 that you have to know your place and point. But the second big one is being the influencer, as you were saying, to guide that organization to where it needs to go. That organization has got to have, they have to believe that you can lead them, because if they don't believe that you can lead, they're not going to get behind you, with you, rally with you, fight the battles that are needed, and grow as you need to grow. So a lot of it is also that. But lastly is being humble. I think being humble and also being self-critical as a leader, to let people know you are a real individual and you're far from perfect. But that as a leader, you're there with them when you need to be with them, and you're not always just sort of dictating what needs to be done.
Right. So it's not always leading from the top, it's always leading from the center to the side to the outside to. It's clear that, General Becker, we were talking about, how things have just changed so much in our environment, our society, our planet. So when you look at the context of leadership and leadership models today, what got us here isn't necessarily going to get us there, right? So I would love to hear from you all. What do you think are the important leadership competencies or attributes in today's environment? I mean, Workforce 2020 just came out with data that said that three leadership competencies are pretty much prioritized around the planet, and that's collaboration, connection, and having a deep sense of a global, deep cultural awareness of others to inspire and motivate them to get things to do at a discretionary level. When you have a rich, diverse spectrum of people that are surrounded by you, that don't look like you, that don't talk like you, that's not always easy, right? So those are just three to kind of give an example, but I'd love to hear from you. General Becker, we'll start with you first, and then kind of work from both ends. So,
going to a basic leadership tenet that I don't think has changed. The number one thing a leader's got to be able to build a team, and that was true. I'm sorry, that was true 100 years ago, and I think that's just as true today. The most effective organizations I've been associated with, the ones where leaders build a strong team. But as it relates to the current strategic environment, I think that what some of the changes that need to take place is, for years, successful organizations were the ones that could create efficiency. They were focused, they were very hierarchical, and they could create efficiency and squeeze the most out of their resources. But as the environment's changed, I think it's more about adaptability now. So leaders, where you once had a great deal of control, and leaders were often felt very comfortable being in control, have got to feel comfortable with ambiguity. They got to feel comfortable with assuming some risk and being able to identify what that risk is, or they will not be able to adapt at the rapid pace that this environment changes. So I think it's one of the biggest changes that organizations have got to take a look at is efficiency versus adaptability. How do they become more adaptable?
Thank you.
I would definitely say an important thing for a leader to be able to do is communicate. This day and age, it's just crazy with all these technological innovations, and being able to reach out to multiple generations can be very important when you're trying to spread a message and get things done. We live in a time when the president's at Twitter. It's we have to adapt to that, and especially when you're looking at the local level, you want to get people at your events. donors to come to your blood drives. And I think a great way to do that is social media right now. And also emails and all these other things, just to reach out to multiple generations and not just what we're comfortable with. And I think that's something that, you know, is constantly changing, and we have to, like you said, adapt to every day. And definitely communicating effectively is something.
Yeah, you're right on with that. Thank you. Teresa?
Well, I think one of the lessons I've really learned the last 4 years is about that we're actually a very small world. And that globally, you have to really be aware of what's going on globally, because people move around, you hire a broad set of diversity within your organization, and you really need to understand that as a high-tech company, we hire very young individuals, and also taking time to really mentor and guide and direct in real time, I think is important, because you don't want to let individuals create sort of bad habits, that you don't spend some time just sort of gently redirecting a bit and guiding and letting them know better ways, or asking them, letting them be a little bit self-critical on, do you think that went well? How could we have done that better? And one of the principles we have, I love at Amazon, is called disagree and commit. And the disagree and commit concept can be quite challenging, yet at the same time very enlightening, because if you are, we hire really smart people who are disruptors. And when you allow someone the opportunity to have a voice that they know is going to be heard, as long as they voice their ideas smartly, with data, because we're very data-driven, so if they have data and you voice it smartly, that they have a real chance that they'll be heard. And it's taken very seriously, and they are allowed to have a voice. And it can be, there's always some natural friction going on, and we like that concept. We think that keeps us as high innovators. Because if you just always get in line and you're not questioning the status quo, you're not really disrupting. And we are big disruptors, and we're constantly questioning, are we doing things the right way? So I think, again, you have to make sure that you're listening to people's voices, because I find the best ideas come out of our really smart individuals. So it's not just about your ideas, it's about clearly listening and picking at those to really then get the best solution, and then maybe evolve that solution, because sometimes the first one out of the gate's not always the best, but you can evolve it over and over and over.
Yeah, I think listening to all voices and having all voices on deck, right? That really mirrors who we're serving in terms of our customers, our stakeholders, and those people out there in the community. So really important. This is just an ad hoc question. I was meeting with Jeff Milk yesterday, who's the executive officer of GE. A little music in there. And I was just asking him, how do you just deal with all the things hitting you in so many different ways now in social media, the immediate responses? And I always ask this question to executives and CEOs: how do you sense the future, believe in the present? And how do you deal with all the minutiae flying at you, and know the priorities, and establish this clarity with those that serve you, but also continue to sense the future with them? So anybody can take a stab at that one. But does anybody have any thoughts on that one?
I will take a stab at that one really quickly, because we have two other principles called think big and deliver results. And they're can be a little bit like, I have people ask me, well, are those the same? How do you deliver think big and, how do you do that? And the concept is really built to do that, just what you said. You've got to constantly be thinking about what's out there, where's the hockey puck going? How do you innovate on behalf of your consumers, your customers? How do you think about that, and how do you do that? At the same time, when you're running a business or organization, not for profit, you have to deliver results. You have to deliver results, otherwise you won't have a business. So it's really, and I think great leaders have to do that. And that is probably, if you look at today, because technology allows you to be super, and you use it effectively to be very competitive. But if you're not using it appropriately, you can get behind as an example. So as a leader, you constantly have to be considering, how do I think big and drive strategically, yet constantly deliver results that I need to deliver, so I can innovate more and do more things.
I spent the last 2 years reorganizing staff, and that was a very challenging experience, but it gets exactly what you're talking about, was how do you, because there is a level of bureaucracy, just about any large organization that takes care of the day-to-day routine deliverables, whether it's payroll, So we created what we call a dual operating system. So we still had some of our traditional staff. For us, our 1 who does personnel, our 2 who does intelligence, our 3 does operations, 4 does logistics. But then we created a cross-functional staff along lines of effort to think about the future. And the important thing on that network cross-functional organization was that it truly was cross-functional. It wasn't stovepipe along any certain functional areas. So they would think about the future. They would throw out things, like you said, that nobody had even thought of. And there was no, you couldn't say, well, that's a stupid idea. You had to think about it. It was the Shark Tank. And then, you know, so really what we created, and we were running an organization about 20,000 people on any given day. So this was a large organization. But we really had a dual operating system. And it took about 2 years to really get it up and running. That network piece was one that was really difficult, a lot of pushback. Because people were very comfortable with the way we've been organized in the past, which was a very stovepipe, mechanistic type of organization.
So how do you align your human intelligence so it channels up to the right thing you need to know at the right time? It really matters, right? Those networks are so critical. You know, I'd like to move it a little bit on the other side of the pendulum, and that's really about service, community service, which you all are definitely involved in. So what inspired you to get involved in community service, leadership in the community? And what do you get back from that?
So I started volunteering at a pretty young age, and I think it's really because my family instilled those values of contribution in me. When I was younger, my uncle got diagnosed with leukemia, and I just saw firsthand he was in a constant need of blood, and I saw personally what volunteers, what they can do to help. And so my mom just went ahead and looked for a Red Cross chapter, and that's how I got started. And when the first meeting, the youth coordinator just told us we need a blood drive coordinator, we need a marketing coordinator, and we just kind of got thrown into it, and we learned along the way. But it's just been an amazing experience, and because I know that it's indirectly helping the welfare of others. Like Linda Mathis said, 1 pint of blood can save 3 lives. I just never get tired of hearing that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's wonderful.
For me, it was, I don't even know that I knew that what it was volunteering. It's just sort of part of the DNA, I think, of my family. We just always were in the community helping. If it was our church or, you know, I'm from a very small area in Kentucky, and you just sort of help each other. And I think, I don't know, it's just part of who you are, and you actually don't even feel good about what you do. It's not, it's just your DNA. Like I said, it's part of who you are, and I think that it's in your heart, or you just live it. It's how you live it. And I just spent some time this week with a group out of the UK that has a mission that I thought was so great, that was about both doing sort of venture work, but they also work with a lot of families around Europe where one of the goals of missions is philanthropy, doing good things. So their practice was really interesting because it was a tie between sort of creating businesses, but then you to tie back, well, how do we do that as a result of doing good? So I took them over to see a social incubator called Halcyon House in Georgetown. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a social kind of venture capital group that gets incubators thinking about social good and how they start those things. And I believe today, our young people are thinking about doing social good even through technological solutions, which is really exciting. And it can touch you every single day in what you do. But I will also just quickly say that being around the world and seeing the Red Cross work in remote areas around the world is mind-blowing. I mean, it's just absolutely mind-blowing when you see the Red Cross in action. I mean, here, we sort of almost take them for granted, which is very sad. You never want to take your Red Cross for granted because they're always there, and that's part of who they are. But then you go around the world where there's no way to do anything except by foot in villages, and here they are with their Red Cross like logo on. They're going village to village, helping families get immunized, or bringing them food, or helping them out. And it really hits home that volunteerism is just, I mean, it's at work every single day around the world, and Red Cross is one of the key elements of really leading and driving that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Tracy. You're doing all that too well. So, go ahead.
The DNA thing is my father served for 22 years in the Air Force. Well, I didn't think about much growing up. When I went to college, I joined ROTC. I didn't expect either one of my boys were going to join the military. Now one's a lieutenant,
that impact you. I remember my sister up in Minnesota, 4 or 5 years ago, and we got this call from her son, my nephew, and his apartment was burning down in Chicago. It was one of the largest apartment fires they'd had in about 10 years. You watched it on TV, turned on the news, and oh my gosh, that was Bryce's apartment burning down. And within 3 minutes, the Red Cross was there with a check for so much money they gave him, food and clothing for the next couple of years. And I said, someday, I'm going to really help out and do something to give back to the Red Cross. So I guess that's my story, but what advice do you have? I think people, generally human beings, want to connect, they want to help, but how do you take that first step forward if we don't know how to get involved or what to contribute for our time? What are some of the pieces of advice that you want to have there? Varsha, what do you give people in terms of advice to get involved and get out there?
I would definitely say don't be afraid, to go out and try something new. I was just thrown into, like running blood drives, and I find that was one of my biggest passions. And whatever you do, just really put your whole heart into it, because you find that when you have the best intentions, it has the best effect. And I think, looking in your community, your high school, it's definitely a good place to start when you're younger. I think just anywhere in your community, finding a place to volunteer is a good place. And, when you find yourself growing, and your opportunities growing, and...
Great, good. We're all going to come to you for that coaching and advice. General Becker, how about you?
Again, I think just through your own personal example, getting out and talking about how rewarding it is, and then others will see the passion you have and the excitement and the satisfaction, and they'll want to do the same, they want to experience the same.
Well, I would say I bet everybody in here is already a volunteer. So we're sort of preaching to the choir, so to say. So I would say for the people who are in here, it's about inviting others to the party. Really inviting people to come share in with the activities that you're doing, showcase what you're doing. And again, if you find something that you really think has a talent for it, tell them. Build them up and say, you know what, I think you could really help with the Red Cross, whatever is your passion. But sort of build people up to let them know and understand that they have a talent that they may not be tapping into completely. And then just, giving them some ideas.
And to build upon that, Teresa, within 5 years, half of our workforce in this plant will be millennials. I don't know if there's any millennials in the room. Maybe not. But, and one of their priorities is community service. Now, they are looking at future employers' websites to see not only diversity, but how they are involved in the community, how they're giving back, and what organizations and institutions that they are supporting. And if they can align with that, right? So I think a big question here is, what advice do you have for this generation of leadership? How can we get them more involved in service? Because I think they can be a huge, huge support for us as we move the Red Cross along. So, Varsha, what would you like to say about that?
I would definitely say, being young in high school, there's a lot of pressure on us to get volunteer hours or get the best grades. And I would just definitely say, forget about all that. When you have good intentions, like I was saying earlier, you'll find a really good passion. And so, yeah, definitely don't worry about, the future, worry about right now. And how you can respect this.
Be in the present, right?
Right, exactly.
Be here now.
Yeah.
I like that. Good.
Well, I think, it's about, again, how do you get people excited? It's just about really trying to tap into their passion. And if you tap into people's passion, they're going to automatically just take off. And you got to find something that you get excited about. Now, how do you get people excited? Sometimes a little bit of that is marketing and salesmanship too, because individuals can't always, they've got to be, you've got to discuss it, you've got to give them data, get them really excited about the possibilities and how they as an individual can really make a difference. And sometimes it might be a difference through a single person, a small group, a large group, a country. I mean, who knows what the possibilities are? But if you don't at least start somewhere trying, you will know what the potential is.
Put your toe in the water. One last question here, then we'll go to questions from all of you. Think of a leader that, whether they are still living or not today or passed away, that you know, you think that was one of the best leaders that you truly admired, and things that you might have learned from them, any particular attributes that you've picked up, observed, that you've taken and perhaps integrated into your leadership? Varsha, you want to start off?
Sure. I think aside from my family, someone I really look up to is a motivational speaker, Anthony Robbins. I was introduced to him from my father, who attended a bunch of his seminars, and when I got to the age, I wanted to go to one of the seminars and try it out, and so I went to one a couple of years ago, and I think that was just one of the most life-changing moments of my life, because I was in a room with 5,000 people, and this guy was talking to us, and he made it sound like he was talking just personally to me, and he gets you in this just amazing state where you can, he has this, on the first stage, you're able to get into a state of mind where you can walk on fire, and I actually was able to walk on a path of coals. So, I just I just learned these amazing things from that 1 week, and I really look up to him, not just because I'm short.
So you have blisters on your feet now, or?
I'm
You're all good? Okay. Good.
I've been blessed to work with a lot of great leaders, but the one that probably had the most impact on me was General Ray O'Neill, who happens to be right here at the Pentagon. He's the Chief Staff of the Army. He was a battalion commander. I was one of his subordinate commanders, battery commander. I was a captain. And he showed me what investing in building the team can really do to an organization. It was by far the best organization I'd ever served in. Still is. And it wasn't that we had no talent. We probably were about the same as all the other battalions in the Army. There were thousands of them. But he spent so much time building that team into an effective team that everybody wanted to be part of and everybody was committed to. So I've always tried to model that and do something to building teams.
That's great. Thank you.
I have so many leaders I admire, and I think leaders all have different styles, but a couple, my father, back to you, my father took farm boys and turned them into amazing basketball players. And I just still admire, he's passed away now, but I really think about how he motivated and all he individually did for each and every one of those boys. And some of them had never even been out of the county that we lived in. And when he passed away, they lined up out the door and around, for a mile almost. And every story I heard from them was about the impact that he had made on their lives. And it was mind-blowing to me. And while I knew it and I saw it, after he passed, to hear each and every story that these young men and women who were cheerleaders or whatever, how parents, people that were involved, just talk about him, it really made me see how selfless he had been and what he had done. I know he made no money as a coach. He spent it all giving them gas money and shoes and food and everything else. I mean, it was his passion. And I think a second leader that is someone that instilled in me that I could do anything. I worked, the first tech company I worked for, the CEO was a guy by the name of Don Byrne. He probably doesn't even know this, but he gave me the confidence to do things I never thought I could do. I never worked in tech. He let me buy and sell technology applications. He would say, you can do this. He put everything in a triangle. And he would say, you can do that. You can do that. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And I'm curious by nature. I like good problems to solve. But I don't know that I would have ever been where I am today without having somebody like that really instill in me a level of confidence that I could do this. I'm a speech and language pathologist by background. I had no tech. I had some science, but no tech. And now, 18 years later, I've been working in technology for all this time. And it was really because he said, you can do that. And I love it. So,
And early on in your career,
yeah.
It's wonderful. It's a gift to have somebody who you can hang out with for a while, who has a broader vision of you than you sometimes have of yourself. And yes, you can versus no, you can't. Right? That's a huge gift. So I'd like to kind of transition now, and I'm sure you all have great questions. It's a rare opportunity to tap on their knowledge and thought leadership. So I'd like to open it up to any questions from the